Hello, and welcome to the Jones Leadership Center's very first online workshop. Even though coronavirus has interrupted our lives in countless ways over the past few weeks and the indefinite future, the need for leadership has not been canceled. In fact, the need for strong and forward-thinking leaders is greater than ever for many of us. So, we at the JLC want to meet you where you are in your leadership journey, right at home. With the world as we know it changing so quickly day by day, an especially important leadership quality to develop in this time is adaptiveness. Join us in this workshop as your schedule and mental capacity allows, and take this time to be mindful of developing a confident and capable leadership mindset to bring with as we transition out of isolation into a changed world. So to start off, we'll introduce ourselves a little bit so you know who's talking you through all this. My name's Delilah. This is my second year being an intern with the JLC, and I am a junior studying music education.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elise. This is my first year at the JLC. I'm a senior, and I am studying community and nonprofit leadership and sociology. And like Delilah said, we work at the Jones Leadership Center, which is at the Wisconsin Union, and our organization is committed to inspiring and preparing students to work with others to positively transform themselves, their peers, and their communities. So next, we just have some learning objectives real quick for you. So first, we have identify heroic and post-heroic styles of leadership. The next one is distinguish the difference between leadership and authority. And then our last learning objective is identify what qualities make a successful adaptive leader, and then how to cope with adaptive challenges.
Okay, so here's a little outline of what we will be covering today. The beauty of a virtual workshop is that you can feel free to pause at any point to reflect further on any of these elements that we'll be talking about that you think would be especially helpful for you. There will also be time at the end designated for a reflection with specific questions, so be sure to stick around for that.
All right, so first off, we have heroic leadership and post-heroic leadership. These are two leadership styles that I will be defining for y'all real quick. So on the left-hand side, we have heroic leadership. A heroic leader is the more traditional sense of the word leader. So that's somebody that is the one that calls the shots. They are creating the direction and kind of the vision for the group. They are the ones that are using their position, their influence as a leader to exert power downwards, kind of their influence downwards. We call that top-down leadership. They're at the top and everybody else kind of is under their hierarchy. And they are usually the point person. They are the one that is kind of leading everybody, managing everyone. They are the ones that are in charge. This is contrasted with post-heroic leadership, which is a more modern take on what a leader is. So in the post-heroic leadership, leaders and members work together to collaborate to create their shared vision, their tangible vision. And these post-heroic leaderships, they really focus on collaboration, like I said, rather than this top-down hierarchy like I was describing in heroic leadership. The lines between leader and team member get blurred a little bit, which is not a bad thing. That just means that there's more room for everybody to work together for the shared vision, and that kind of creates this environment of shared responsibility. So everybody kind of taking a stake in a problem that needs to be solved or the vision that is trying to be reached. And this also creates a mutual influence on one another. Everyone is holding each other accountable, and everyone has influenced each other with their ideas and that sort of thing. So with those two leadership styles, we are now going to present some, we are now going to have you think about just some real life examples where you might see each type, or where you've seen it in your life, or if you've even, been either type of leader.
Yeah, so feel free to pause and just take a minute to reflect on that. Okay, so one way that heroic and post-heroic styles of leadership differ is in the way that they distinguish the difference between leadership and authority. So heroic leadership sees these as one and the same, but the post-heroic way of thinking recognizes an important distinction between the two. So authority is an exchange-focused relationships in which one party provides direction in exchange for a sense of purpose, protection, and order. Think of a CEO at a traditional company. They likely are the ones at the top of the chain handing out orders in order to manifest the company's mission. This CEO is most likely exemplifying heroic leadership. An important distinguishing element of authority is that it can be given or taken away. For example, getting promoted to manager at work is being granted authority to have more influence over the company operations. A common misconception is that only those in authority positions are qualified to show leadership. In reality, this is far from the truth. Leadership is separate from authority and can be exercised by anyone regardless of their position in a group. Being an authentic leader means promoting open communication, serving the group's needs, and encouraging a culture of collaboration that is inclusive of the entire team. Since leadership is a voluntary activity, it cannot be given or taken away from someone who exemplifies good leadership, unlike authority. An example of leadership being separate from authority might be seen in a sports team. While there is probably a captain and a coach, an effective team needs full cooperation of each member to collaborate using their different strengths in order to pull off a win.
All right. So next up, we have what our workshop is actually titled. So I'm going to define what adaptive leadership actually is. What does it actually mean? So adaptive leadership is focused on providing people a framework to be able to face challenges and difficult decisions that may arise in themselves, in the group, that sort of thing. So it provides people the tools and the support to be able to adapt to their new realities, managing their own obstacles rather than just taking charge and implementing a one-time fix that won't lead to long-lasting change or leadership. So the guiding principle of this adaptive leadership philosophy is kind of based on this quote that we have on the screen. So if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man a fish, you feed him for life. And that kind of, maybe it's corny, but the adaptive leadership kind of is very reflective in this. So you give a man a fish for the day, you're looking out for that one day. It's kind of a temporary fix. You're taking initiative to solve that problem, but it's not really adaptive leadership because the root of the problem, this man doesn't know how to fish, is kind of that he'll be hungry again tomorrow. And what happens tomorrow when you fix the problem for today, but the next day comes? So you teach a man how to fish, you are giving that person the skills to be an adaptive leader by having them adapt to their new reality of needing a fish every day and not having the skills. So by giving them the skills and the framework to be able to succeed, they find leadership in themselves and they are able to face their own challenges going forward.
So now let's go over some qualities that make for a great adaptive leader. So an adaptive leader has the ability to draw attention to tough questions. After all, you won't be able to address challenges if you don't recognize them honestly. This also applies to interpersonal conflicts that may arise, which could damage the group dynamic and the drive toward the goal if ignored. An adaptive leader is able to recognize others' potential for handling responsibility and giving them said responsibility, even if they initially don't believe that they can handle it. Something to be cautious about, though, in this respect is to not overwhelm someone by giving them truly more than they can chew. When necessary, help them be prepared with the tools that they need to succeed. The key here is to find the sweet spot that stretches one's comfort zone and results in sustainable growth. It may take some trial and error to find the right balance, so be prepared to be flexible. It's also important to promote a group culture in which everyone feels welcome to share their thoughts, which also means offering specific protection to those who may offer ideas that conflict with the general consensus. This ensures that all group members feel that their input is valued and that they continue to have stake in the group goal. Also, this is how some of the most innovative ideas can often surface. An adaptive leader also helps other group members stay on task. This doesn't mean yelling at others to get back to work, but it means checking in as needed to make sure everyone is on the same page and to see if the plan is working or if you need to adapt. If everyone is stuck, this would be an opportunity to provide them with the support that they need to get back on track.
All right. So now we have a real world example for y'all. So it is based off this article called The Wonder Women of the Botswana Safari. So it is about Chobe Game Lodge, which is in Botswana. It's the nation or the country's first national park. So when it first began, there was a mix of male and female safari guides leading tours, and the safari guide and field in itself is very male dominated. And as time went on, the park administrators noticed that there was a disparity between the quality of driving the safari vehicles between the different genders. So the vehicles driven by women were using less gas, they were taking fewer repairs, and overall, the vehicles were lasting longer. So in comparison to the males, they would use more gas. The vehicles would take more repairs and overall not last as long. So they traced the root of this problem to the way that the different genders were y- uh, doing their tours, excuse me. So, for example, the male guides would be a lot more aggressive in their approach on the tours. So, focusing on chasing the wildlife, catching up to animals, versus the female guides, on the other hand, they were taking advantage of the kind of the lulls in the action and kind of just the way, just letting the animals kind of do what they want in a sense. And what they would do is provide the guests with more detailed narratives, kind of stories that they had in themselves, and kind of facts about the environment. And this also provided the guests at the park um, a way to hear about overlooked wildlife like birds. They had a lot more information about that. So that more relaxed style from the women was safer for the vehicles and for people, and just more enjoyable for the visitors' overall experience at the park. So what the park administrators decided to do was adapt their business model overall by switching the employee role so that all the safari guides were women, and now, like I said on the slide, all 17 guides at the Chobe Park are female. So it caused a little bit of a rift at first, but overall, the male guides were respectful and understanding of this new change of all female guides, and because knowing it was the best for the park and for the business. And the male guides kind of stepped into other roles that needed to be filled, being chefs for the park, doing different sorts of cleaning, maintenance on vehicles, all of that sort of thing. So this is such a great example of adaptive leadership because the administrators and the women themselves, they recognize a need for improvement in the vehicles in the park, and acknowledge that the strengths of the male and female leaders were different, and utilizing those strengths in different areas to help the park succeed, and just adapting the plan overall in order to make the situation better for everybody involved, for the guests, for everybody that worked there. And in the end, this kind of helped for female empowerment of the guides, letting them step up into bigger roles and succeed in such a male dominated field in Africa, and overall improving their bottom line of their business model as well. So, like I said, the article is called "The Wonder Women of the Botswana Safari." If you want to look it up, it's a New York Times article.
All right, so now we're going to look at adaptive challenges. What are adaptive challenges? Adaptive challenges are those that require an adaptive leader. So, what makes it a challenge adaptive is that it requires a change in values, attitudes, and/or behavior in order to reach a solution. This is different from a technical challenge, which is something that can be fixed within the existing framework. While exercising adaptive leadership, your goal is to inform and mobilize the group to address the challenges at hand while also helping minimize conflict. For example, the administrators at the Botswana Safari Company took an adaptive leadership approach by realizing the differences between an easily fixed technical challenge, such as just repairing the guide vehicles only, versus an adaptive challenge, such as changing the hiring practices of the vehicle's drivers. This outcome required a deep organizational shift in their values, beliefs, and behavior that resulted not only in a more profitable bottom line, but also an enhanced experience for their guests during a safari at the Chobe Game Lodge.
Perfect. So, we have a few questions for you all, and after I kind of go through them and explain a little bit, feel free to pause the video and take some time to write down your answers to these questions and kind of reflect on what you've learned thus far in the workshop. So, our first question is kind of how has these two different styles of leadership, the heroic and post-heroic, been present in your life? When have you taken the roles? When have you seen others take the roles? In what ways have you seen adaptive leadership from other people in your life in situations that you've been in? And how have you yourself been an adaptive leader? And in what situations? Another question we have is, what adaptive challenges have you faced, and what have you done to deal with them, and what did you learn about yourself and your style of adaptive leadership in that process? Please feel free to pause right now with this video if you would like to write down your thoughts to these questions. And why we pose these questions as well, it's really important in this day and age because we really want you to reflect on your life as a whole, especially now that the COVID-19 pandemic is really underway, and brainstorm the ways in which you can embody the qualities of an adaptive leader in your life going forward. In this pandemic, since everything is really different, and we really need adaptive leaders, and in this time going forward, and kind of now and when we come out of isolation, what that's going to look like for leadership and different roles that you take in your life. So as the world is adapting to a new normal, how can you use your leadership to bring about positive change?
All right, so that is about it. Time to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first virtual workshop. So we hope that this was helpful and that you were able to pick up some new ideas about adaptive leadership. Since this was our first virtual workshop, we would really like any feedback that you have for us. So feel free to drop us a line either through email or DMs because we'd love to hear from you. So be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook to stay informed on future opportunities to invest in your leadership. And that's it for us today. Thank you guys so much for
Thank
watching.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.